straight challenge. Don't you dare, ref. That's he got the ball. Good afternoon, Tottenham fans worldwide, and welcome back to the Irish Hotspur with your boy Dave. And we are bringing you a new, hopefully weekly show. I do something on Sava's every week, and he's obviously said that he will return the favor and do something with me every single week on these pre-records. Now, before we do get into it, we ask how Sava is. When I have asked Sava to do channel predictions, there has been comments underneath it that I do not like, and I think attacks Sava rather than maybe attacks his or goes after his football opinion. So I would ask, before anyone just sees Sava on screen and just goes in and puts in a stupid comment, a wayward comment, please hear the guy out. Let's hear what he has to say. And if you do disagree with his football argument and let him know why. But anything else outside of that is foul play, not on, and I will delete the message. Sava, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. It shouldn't have to be that way. But listen, obviously, I've always wanted to do more content with you, but obviously, there's been a few things around it. But listen, we're here. This is a new day, and yeah, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
No, I really, really appreciate it. And look, I'm excited to get this show going. It's been in the works for a while, so finally to have great to have you on, my man. But look, let's get straight into it. Of course, breaking news today that Tottenham do plan to appeal the FA's decision to ban Rodrigo Bentancur for 7 matches over his remarks on Sunday. Spurs are not appealing the guilty verdict, but are challenging the length of the ban. Now, Sava, how big of a blow is the loss of Rodrigo Bentancur right now, considering I think he's our best player in that CDM, despite not being a natural number 6, but also with the real tough games we've got coming up? How big of a blow is Rodrigo Bentancur to Spurs?
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, where, you know, he's the closest thing we've got to a CDM, a 6, whatever we want to call it. He is. And even though that's not his natural game, he is the one that tends to go in there and does the best at filling in for that position. Look, it's a miss because, you know, I mean, look, you know, clubs miss their players. Of course they do. But especially clubs that didn't buy what they needed to in the transfer window will especially miss players. So, look, is he going to be missed? Yes. We talked about this earlier today that I think Tottenham, you know, we've got Roma and Man City coming up in the next week. And then after that, we've got 9 games in a month. So it's a lot of games. It's going to be a lot of energy being taken out of players. There's a lot of traveling. And I'm sure you'll ask me in a minute about what this means for the other players in that position. But look, it's you know, it's gonna show us what is Ange about. How does he cope with this? This is what managers get paid to do, right? So we can appeal it, but look how long it took them to come. Look how long look how long it took to come with the original decision. It was like 5 months. So, you know, will we appeal it in time to actually get him back before that ban is finished? Does that make sense? So, look, we'll see. It is a miss. Listen, I think he's a good player. I think he's like the others. I think he can go missing. He can be inconsistent. But for me, he is the best of that group of midfielders. So he will be missed. Yeah, of course.
100%, I agree with you, and especially with the games coming in thick and fast, we're going to rely heavily on Ange Postecoglou in that position. And for me, I am concerned about that purely because I think Ange Postecoglou, he's not a CDM. He's not the guy that anyone looks at and says he's the guy to protect our back line and move that ball. Defensively, I think he's a bit naive. I think he's more of a box-to-box midfielder, or a midfielder that should be allowed to play higher up, maybe in a number 8 role. But also, I think in possession, I think he takes too much risk. I think with Bentancur, he can pass the ball around the pitch, so he can take one touch, move it. With Bissouma, he has to go dribbling, which means he's inviting the press, he's inviting pressure, and 9 times out of 10, he's dribbling at 5 yards right up to the guy, which he's bringing players over to the guy he's trying to give the ball to. So I think it's a huge problem, whereas Rodrigo Bentancur, I think, brings a lot more stability in there. He reads the game a lot better, in my opinion. And in possession, I think when he's in there, we move the ball a lot quicker from that position into the 2 number 10s, which I think is a huge asset. So I think he's really going to be missed. But you spoke about the minutes coming up, Sava. Is this now where finally Archie Gray has to be moved into that CDM role to see what he can bring? And look, obviously it's not ideal, right? But we're talking about Postecoglou having to find solutions.
Yeah, well, look, this is the name, isn't it? This is the name that has had, I think, more coverage than any other football player at Tottenham since the summer and probably playing the least minutes. Look, again, Archie Gray bought for 40 million. Again, that's not his fault. But he was bought, and we all were led to believe that this is a midfielder. This is a defensive midfielder who wants to play in that number 6 role. And to date, we've not seen him. I think maybe a few minutes against Leicester, if memory serves me right, maybe in the last 10, 15 minutes. But we've not seen him play there, Dave. So it's really difficult to judge how good is he. Like, do you know what I mean? I can't sit here and go, oh my God, this is the worst signing ever, or what a generational talent. I just don't know. What I do know is he's not a left back and he's not a right back for me. He doesn't look defensively clued up. So why not? Look, this is the time where you have to use your squad, Dave, right? You know, let's assume that Bentancur wasn't banned. Let's assume this was a 2-month injury. Either way, banned, injury, this is the time where you see, right, how much do you trust your squad? You've brought him in. Now let's see, was he Postecoglou's buy and he trusts him? Or was it a buy for him and he didn't really want him and it was a club buy? What I do know is this. Basuma is not a number 6. I do think Basuma gets a lot of stick being asked to play in a position where I just don't think he is. Whenever I saw him best for Brighton, he was a number 8, if you will, box-to-box midfielder. He wants to beat the press. He wants to drive forward with the ball. Is he the guy that sits in front of the back 4 that's calm in possession, that wants, you know, like Bentancur's a bit calmer, isn't he? He's a bit more of a put my foot on the ball, see what's going on. I don't think Basuma's that guy. Is Archie Gray that guy? We're going to find out, because can you play the next 7, 8, 9 games? Because again, there's going to be 2 Europa League games in there as well that Bentancur is eligible for. And then you've got to ask yourself, well, does he bring them in? Does he bring him in for those games? Or does he then say, actually, no, I'm going to give this time to Bergvall, to Gray? So it's going to be interesting to see what he does. Let's see what Gray's made of. Let's get him in. And this could be one, again, we talked about sliding door moments on my channel. Could this be where he goes in? First couple of games, all right, it's going to be a bit difficult because, you know, he's settling in. But maybe then after that, the 3rd game, 4th game, 5th game, we start to see, hang on, this kid's really comfortable there. And it could be something that propels him into the first team for the rest of the season. Only Ange knows. Only Ange knows. What I do know is I wouldn't start him there against Man City. That's what I do know. I wouldn't file it against Man City.
Do you know what? Just a couple of things there. I think Postecoglou we'll have to bring Archie Gray into a CDM. And look, the problem is there is going to be inconsistencies there. He could very well end up getting his pocket pick, costing you a goal, which cost you a game. You know, I think not ideal, but I think Spurs fans are going to have to realize that could end up being a possibility with Archie Gray. But I do think Postecoglou now is the right time to bring him into that position behind Basuma right now and integrate him into the lineup. And let's see what the kid's got there, because there's no point of flapping him around at right back, left back when the club signed him. And they've said this, the multiple articles have come out where they said they see Archie Gray as a long-term CDM. Well, now's the opportunity to give him his chance there over a couple of games. So let's see what he can do. But on Basuma, interestingly, I didn't think you were going to make that point with Basuma, that you think sort of he's getting a bit of unfair narrative around him. Let me ask you, why do you think Postecoglou then and Antonio Conte were very reluctant to play him in a role that suits him then?
Yeah, listen, great question. I don't, look, it's difficult because I don't think either of these formations particularly suit him. You know, I think if you've got a guy sitting behind him who's a bit more defensive and you're saying, go on, Eve, you know, go and do your thing. Brilliant. And I think we saw moments of this. And like, if you go back to, it was a long time ago now, but if you look at the first 10 games, Basuma was excellent, wasn't he? He was brilliant at beating the press, driving forward with the ball. But look, yeah, maybe Basuma's just not as good as we all thought he was. Look, I don't know. There must be a reason. When multiple managers can't get the best out of you, I said the same with Ndombele and Celso and those types of players. When multiple managers, Dave, don't get the best out of you, at what point do we stop making excuses like I just have and we actually say, well, maybe he's just not as good as we thought? And I think we've got I think all of our midfielders are very similar in terms of, I don't think in terms of the way they play. I think they're all very similar in terms of, I think they're good. If I look at Basuma, Bentancur and Sava, I think they're good. I don't think they're that next level needed to be a really top club, but I think they're good. And what comes with good versus great is inconsistency. You know, if you look at again, I hate to judge again, but if you look at players like Rodri, right? He's a great player because week in, week out, he runs games. He is brilliant week in, week out. When you go to that next level down of midfielder, it's inconsistent. And that comes with, there's a reason why they were the price they were, you know. So look, I like certain aspects of Basuma's game, but I never know what I'm going to get from him. I never know what I'm going to get from him. So that might answer the question. I don't think he'll be here after this year, if I'm honest. I don't think he'll be here.
You know what? Interesting. I'm starting to come around to that sort of opinion or that sort of way of thinking as well, because two things you said there. One on Ange Postecoglou, I actually agree with you that, you know, he's not being utilised in his best position. When you look at him with Brighton, he had a lot more freedom to go forward and affect games, and that's what really excited the fans when we were signing him.
Yeah.
But there has been opportunity, you know, although Conte played the two centre midfielders, Højbjerg was always the more pragmatic. Bentancur had a bit more freedom. You look in this system for large periods, Papa Matasara, whoever played that number 8, you know, had a lot more freedom to go forward. But both managers have been very hesitant to unleash Basuma in that role. And I'm just trying to wrap my head around why, when the opportunity has been there, rather than shoehorn him into something that he's not. You heard Conte, and this is why we know Basuma's not suited to number 6. Conte spoke about the reason why he didn't play him, because defensively he just doesn't have the reading of the game and stuff like that, which Darren tells you, to your point, he is a guy that is more effective going forward, but we don't want to sort of take the shackles off him or unleash him, you know, let him go and explore forward. We want to play him in this sort of holding role, which I don't understand. But also, to your point, this is actually a conversation we were having on, I was on Adrian's channel, Spurs, Diehards, Tottenham Till I Die last night. And this was a conversation we were having about our midfielders. When you look at the midfielders, I think we've got really good players in there, but we don't have that player that, you know, that game-changing player, that player that grabs the game by the scruff of the neck when the going gets tough. They all sort of crumble and hide a little. And what I mean by that is, the years gone by, you had a Gerrard in the Liverpool midfield, a Lampard in the Chelsea midfield, a Vieira in the Arsenal midfield, a Roy Keane in the United midfield, your Rodri in the City midfield. To this sort of day and age, this sort of point, we really lack that player in the midfield, Sava, right? Someone that, when things start going around, say, fuck you, I'll take the game on my back.
Yeah. A Moussa Dembele type, a Modric type, somebody who sits in there. And look, do you know the way I always look at football, Dave, is this? When we're debating how good a player is or not, I think when there is so much debate and divide on it, that gives you the answer you're looking for. And what I mean by that is this. No one debated how good Moussa Dembele was. No one debated how good Luka Modric was, or should he start, or what's his best position. No one cared. It was Modric, Luka's in there, Dembele's in there. No one looked at Michael Carrick and said, oh, why is Michael Carrick? Right. And this is the difference. And again, I'm not knocking it. I think we've got some good midfielders in there, but you are 100% right. Have we got that guy that when you look at it, you go, I know what I'm going to get week in, week out. Like, look at Declan Rice at Arsenal. Do I think Declan Rice is the greatest midfielder I've ever seen? No. But you know what you're going to get? He's consistent at what he does, right? Whether or not people want to rate him at whatever level, he's consistent at what he does. And to the most part, so is a Thomas Partey. Spurs, for me, with just that level below, with a little bit of inconsistency. And that was, I think, a lot of us were screaming for it, Dave, right? All summer, the big debate between Spurs fans. We need a 6. Ange doesn't play with a 6, but we need one. I think if you get a proper player in there, a proper guy who runs games, a guy who says at all costs, you know, the sort of like, again, I'll use this player as an example, and I know some people won't like him. If I look at Locatelli at Juventus, if you actually study Locatelli during a Juventus game, he's available for the football at every given moment on the pitch, wherever he is. He's got that knack of I'll drop into this space. I'll drop into that. He's scanned the pitch. He knows what's going on. And he's got that wonderful ability to put his foot on it, slow the game down, or speed the game up. Now, I'm not saying it has to be Locatelli. I'm just saying that type of a player. I don't think any of ours are capable of that. I think Sar's got a brilliant engine. Sar will,
do you think Papamata Sarr could become that player? Because he still has time on his side, Sava, right? He's only 22.
He has time. I just don't think that's the player he is. I think those players are naturally born into doing that. For example, when we took Michael Carrick from West Ham, I'm going back some years here, so sorry for any younger viewers. I think
great
it was
years, by the way.
Yeah,
nostalgic years.
2002, 2004, I don't know, somewhere around there. Carrick played that role for West Ham. He was that guy at a young age. He got his foot on the ball and he dictated, right? You knew what he did. I don't see Sarr as that. I see Sarr as more of your all-action midfielder, good legs, good engine. How good is he on the ball? Sometimes I think he's good. Other times I think he's sloppy, but he's got time on his side. But I think we need to go and get one of those guys who naturally does this, Dave. Even to a lesser degree, you watch Alexis McAllister for Liverpool, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't score hundreds of goals, doesn't get loads of assists, but consistent. Every week you watch Liverpool, he does the simple things well, right? And sometimes those players get overlooked. Doing the simple things well, keeping the system ticking over. I really want to revamp in that midfield. I really do. So apologies if people disagree with me, but I think we need a steadying influence in there.
Do you know what? When you know, Adrian brought up the midfielders that we currently have at the club, and when I looked at it, I'm not sure we need a massive revamp. I just think we need to sign that right character to come into that midfield. And what I mean by that is, if the game requires someone to muck in defensively, that they're the ones getting in the blocks, the tackles. I've seen, you know, Gerrard at Liverpool used to do an awful lot. Didn't get a lot of praise for it because of what he used to do going forward. But when they needed someone defensively, he was that guy that sort of set the standard in that midfield. But also equally, when they needed someone going forward, he also pulled that out of the bag. And I think if we could add that midfielder, I think, you know, you'll see a couple around them blossom. And, you know, I think it'd be a really good influence for the likes of Bergvall and Archie Gray. Because when you look at the two youngsters right now, I think they've got a lot of talent. But do they have that guy in the midfield right now that they can look at and say, this is what I need to do on a daily basis to do that? I don't think we quite have that yet.
I completely agree. And even to a lesser extent, look at Newcastle. If you watch a Bruno Guimaraes is very good at getting on the ball. He wants to dictate play, but he'll get stuck in. He don't mind a tackle. He'll drive forward. So again, I'm not saying him. I'm just trying to give it, you know, kind of examples. That's the word I was looking for. Examples of players. And you're right. I think what it needs is, when I said a revamp, I just think we need one or two. I think we need two. I think we need two midfielders for the squad. One of them has to be the guy that, come rain nor shine, every Spurs fan says, that's our guy. Week in, week out. We're not like every week before a game. I see these debates, Dave. You have them on your show.
Who starts
I have them on mine.
Yeah.
Would you start Sarr or Bentancur or Basuma? Kulu could drop in there. Would you start? We need that guy that we go, it don't matter which other one plays with him, but he has to play. And I don't think we've got that. So look, we'll see. And I don't think, just off the record, you're going to ask me about transfers later. I'll save it. As you were.
Fair enough. We will get into, you know, the upcoming January transfer window. What manager it'll be under, we're not quite sure yet. But, you know, but moving into just quickly on the Man City game, because I know we've done a lot of that on your show. So if people really want to see my thoughts on it, you know, get over to Savas and check out what I had to say on the game. Look, you know, we are famous for being Pep Guardiola's sleeping nightmare. You know, we keep him awake at night. But heading into this game, they're hungry. Guardiola signed a new contract. I think, you know, that's to remotivate the players and stuff like that. How are you feeling heading into Man City game? Do you think we can turn them over? Or are you expecting a different beast?
Look, I said I think we're going to lose, but that got me so much stick. Look, I think that we said it on my channel. There's a number of ways to look at this, Dave. Are we playing Man City, the wounded beast, who are there for the taking? Or are we playing Man City that, like Kyle Walker said, needed the he said if ever a team needed the international break, it's us, being Man City. Are we playing that team that have regrouped a little bit, got a bit of energy back? We know that some of their players are going to have 2 weeks. We know De Bruyne now, who hasn't started for them since he come back, but has been coming on. We know he's fitter. We know that Stones and Diaz are apparently now fit. So is Ake. We know that Grealish has got 2 weeks under his belt. So which Man City are we getting? But, Dave, the big thing that I always think when we play Man City, when anyone plays Man City, not just Tottenham, I told you this on the other stream, but they've not lost at the Etihad since November 2022. Now, can we go there and be the first team to beat them in 2 years? Amazing. That'd be great, right? It would be absolutely amazing for not just for the 3 points, but for the feel good factor. Get the press off the back, get idiots like me off the back. You know what I mean? It would be great. But it's that reason why I think Man City's away form, which is what their last 4 defeats have been, is a different beast to Man City at home. And you called it, Dave. You know, last night, I mean, I don't know if this was a PR masterclass or a disaster class from Man City, announcing 2 days before they played Tottenham that he signed a new contract. Does that give the players, all right, we're a bit more settled now, we know he's here next year, we go? I don't know, Dave, but it's Man City. It's going to be bloody tough, whatever happens.
And on the new contract, like if you're a Man City player, you might have been thinking, well, Guardiola's future's up in the air. What are my options? You know, do I really want to be around Man City once he's gone? Because they're not going to have the same sort of dominance. Now, all of a sudden, they're back focused. Where else would I want to go? Because this is where I'm going to win trophies. So it'd be an interesting one to see how it pans out. But look, I'm not going to delve too much into the City game because we're all going to have a lot to talk about on that coming up over the next few days as we head, because we are later on in the week heading into that game. But Sava, I want to move on to Postecoglou. Look, I think many people, and it's well documented, your thoughts on him in general. Mate. So I want to have a... I want to have a little bit of a different conversation around it, or put a little bit of a different question to you, Sava.
Yeah.
In your eyes, where we're at right now, right? Look, the fan base is split, right? You've got a certain section that want him out. You got a certain section that want to keep him in the job. Now, there's arguments for both. I actually think when you look at it, there's actually arguments for both. When you look at the amount of losses that we've had over a calendar year and stuff like that, you look at it and go, that form's sackable. But when you look at his first 50 games, it's on parallel with Klopp and Arteta, where they were in their time at the process. And, you know, when you also look at the season, we're sitting in, what is it, 9th or 10th right now? People can say it's not good enough. You got to get him sacked. But when you look at the Premier League, there's 3 points separating 3rd to 11th. We've won 3 out of 4 in Europe, and we're in the next round of the Cup. And, you know, you could say, well, I don't want to write the season off now. I feel like if you sack a manager, you're sort of writing the season off to a large degree. But what do you think Postecoglou, because we're at that stage now where it's either going to kick on or it's going to crumble, right? I think that's one thing we can all agree on. Now is the time to either deliver, put up, or shut up. So when you look at the situation now, what does Postecoglou need to do now to sort of really kick this on and get fans like yourself with opinions like yourself on the manager to get you back on side and back behind the project moving forward?
Wow. Look, you're right. There's always 2 ways of looking at something, right? And you're right. Look, when clubs sack managers, it can either go one of 2 ways. It can either be a massive boost and it kickstarts the season, or it can continue the way it was and everyone goes, oh, he shouldn't have been sacked. That's not Ange. That's any football club and any manager. Look, I think it's been well documented. I won't hide from it. I know this segment here will be where your people in your chat will start going, oh, Sava, we hate you, blah, blah. I just don't rate him. I'm sorry. I just don't. That's only my opinion, and I'll back it up, right? I think he's lifeless on the touchline. I don't think he acts quick enough to change games. I don't think he counters what the opposition do. And and he comes out with a lot of bizarre statements. Look, that's just me. That's just me. I'm not, Dave, I'm not here telling you how you should feel as a Tottenham Hotspur fan. I'm not telling any one of your thousands of viewers that are going to watch this video, oh my God, what, you like him? I'm not saying that. It's only my humble opinion, which for some reason gets people really riled up, which is madness. Look, what does he need to do to get someone like me back on side? That's the question, right? For me, I want to see some adaptability. I don't mean every now and then he makes a sub. I want to see that when you're going to Galatasaray, a tough away game in Europe, that you don't go there and just do this gung-ho style of play, high line, 2 attacking midfielders in your midfield instead of 2 defensive midfielders. I want to see a bit of pragmatism. And again, we talked about this on my channel, Dave. People always associate the word pragmatism or pragmatic with defensive. Sometimes there are moments in games, there are spells, 20, 30-minute spells in games where I think you need to just say, right, let's relax. Let's relax here. Let's do nothing silly. Let's, like Brighton, 2-0 up. Let's do nothing silly for the first 15, 20 minutes of the second half. Let's double up on Matoma. We see he's causing problems. It's things like this that I want to see. I want to see a manager that can, I want to see a manager that is tactically diverse. This formation's not working. Let's try something else. And I don't mean for 5 minutes. I don't mean I don't mean for 10 minutes in a game. I mean, give it a go. Look, what he's got to do more than anything, for me, Dave. Go on.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, just before you move off the tactics, because look, I think even a lot of Ange people I do see say, look, sometimes he has to adapt a little to the situation that's going on in front of him. Would you accept, I think at home, I think for the majority of games, I think we can actually get away with playing 2 number 10s. And our home form was pretty good. It's the away form that is absolutely shocking, and it's nowhere near good enough. Would you accept if he did try and go with 2 number 6s away from home instead of 2 number 10s? And do you think it would actually work and put more points on the board?
Yeah, look, for me, I don't want to get too caught up in it just being 2 attacking midfielders. I think you can play them, but I think it's how you set up. And I think there are games, especially, you've hit the nail on the head. Our away form is as bad as teams that get relegated. Just so people know. And I know people will go, oh, it doesn't matter. But it does matter. Teams that are successful normally have good away records. Well, listen, they have a good home and away record, right? That's why they're successful. But, in the last calendar year, Dave, 17 away games in the league and we've won 3. That's not good enough. Listen, that wouldn't be good enough, Dave, if we were talking about Ipswich, Wolves, Forest, whoever. I'm, sorry to pick on those teams, but that wouldn't be good enough for them. So it can't be good enough for a club like Tottenham Hotspur. And what we can't do, and this is my big issue with it, is when we want to praise him because we've battered West Ham, we've battered Brentford, that's great. But managers won't live and die by battering those teams. Managers will live and die by what do they do in the difficult moments. Again, I said managers, not Ange. All managers. Managers will live and die by, this isn't working. I'm paid what I'm paid. My job is to change this up. And I get it. There's a lot of people that just go with a school of thought of, but this is what he does, and this is who we are. That's fine. But Dave, that away form shows that this is who we are, this is what he does, doesn't work. And just to let you know, Dave, one last thing. We've lost 8 games at White Hart Lane in 12 months. 8 in 8. That's massive. That's a lot of home defeats. Just to put it in context, West Ham in that period of time have lost 4, right? In that time, Bournemouth have lost 3. And Aston Villa have only lost 4. So the number of games we're losing at home also needs to, again, just salvage a point. Salvage the point, mix it up. And we talked about this just now. And sorry, I'll finish this rant in a second. For me, it was games like Brighton, Palace, Ipswich. It wasn't that we lost all those games that frustrated me. Yeah, of course, you don't want to lose. But it was, you're 1-0 down to Palace. You've got 2 strikers on the pitch in Solanke and Richarlison for the last half an hour, 25 minutes, plus 7, 8, 9 minutes injury time. But your tactics don't change in terms of you're thinking you've got 2 6-3, 6-4 strikers. Vicario's getting the ball with 5 minutes to go of injury time. You think, launch it. Kitchen sink, go. But he don't pass across the back. And I get it. That's how we want to play. But even the great Barcelona team under Pep Guardiola, I remember seeing Piqué and Puyol being shunted up front in the last 5 minutes of games when they needed a goal. And these are the things for me where I want to see him adapt. And at the moment, I just think the job looks too big for him. That's only me. I'll apologize right now. I'm sorry. I just don't rate him. I don't hate him. I don't care what nationality he is. I just don't rate him as a football manager. And the last 12 months, we're 9th in the form table. That tells me everything I need to know. So that's what he needs to do for me, Dave. Just for me.
No, look, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. So, and look, I think most reasonable people would agree with that as well. I see a lot of people, get frustrated with Ange's in-game management and maybe not adapting to the situations at times, or maybe reacting too late to the situations at times. So I think across the board, I don't think you're saying anything that most Spurs fans aren't saying, about him to a large degree, even if they do like the manager. But I don't think he's as bad as people make him out to be, though. I think, there are questions around him, fair enough, but Tottenham don't hire bad managers. So I just don't think we do enough to really help them succeed and really help push on. Which brings me on to the next point. We got the summer absolutely horribly wrong, Sava. We spoke about him many times between myself and yourself, the need for experienced players to come in here and impact the first 11, a couple of leaders to sign alongside the youngsters. It didn't happen. We have an opportunity this January to try and rectify what we didn't do. When you look at the squad right now, and we'll assume that Ange Postecoglou will be in charge for the January transfer window now.
Oh, he will be. He will be, Dave. Just quickly, Dave, contrary to belief, whether or not I rate him as manager doesn't mean I think he's getting the sack. I keep saying, like I said to you on my show just now, people keep saying, Sava, give him to the end of the year. It's not my decision. Me saying I don't rate him, Daniel Levy's not going to watch Football Heritage TV and go, oh, Sava doesn't like him, let's sack him. I think he will be here. I do. I think he will be here until we get to a point, and if we do get to a point where the points gap to top 4 has gone, that's when Daniel Levy normally pulls the plug. For me, this is just a manager I don't rate. Down the years, there's been some that I do, some that I don't. It's not a big deal if I rate a manager or not. I'm just a guy. It's just like, you know what I mean? I'm just
at the end of the day, results will bring people on board. That's one thing I learned. Even with your Pochettino, a prime example, right? When we brought him in, people were unsure about him, but the more he kept on winning, the more people brought into it. And I think, that's ultimately what the next manager, or whoever's in charge at Tottenham Hotspur in the dugout for however long, that's what they need to do. You can sit there and say all these things. I can sit there and say, well, I think Ange's the right man and everything else. At the end of the day, it's results that bring people along with them. People follow winners. So at the end of the day, that's what needs to happen. But so we're going to assume that Postecoglou, because I know there are people out there that say in the comments, Dave, you'll be sacked by Christmas. I told you. But we're going to assume that Postecoglou will be in charge in January. Looking at where we are at now, what do we need to sign in January to really help us kick on the football pitch? And I'm not talking about signing cover, for players, because that's not really going to kick us on. I'm talking about, bam, straight into the first 11. There you go. For the next 6 months, the press are pulling out what an impact this guy's had.
Yeah, look, this is a really good talking point, Dave. Look, I think we as fans spend so much time talking about transfer windows, right? We as YouTubers love a little bit of transfer gossip in the transfer windows. Look, I think we need. Again, the word cover. I'm like you. I've heard you say this many times, Dave. I'm fed up of saying we need a backup this, a backup that. I want to go and buy quality, right? I don't care whether or not if they're as good as the person in the first team at the moment, good. But the whole point is you get better, isn't it? The whole point is is to upskill your team. For me, I think what you and I want to see versus what we're going to see is always two very different things. And again, I don't think a lot of football fans, when listening to YouTubers, actually hear that bit. Let me tell you what Sava wants. Sorry to talk about myself in the third person. I'll tell you what Sava wants, then what Sava thinks, right? Sava wants to see a top number 6 come in, yeah? A fullback that can cover right back and left back, right? Someone, I'm not saying sign this player, but the way Diego Dallo at Man United can cover both. Someone like that, right? I'm not saying Diego Dallo before everyone has a go at me. I think we need a fullback. I think we need a central midfielder. And I think we need a centre half, a minimum. I think those 3. Listen, I could go all day about we need a winger that does this or a strike. It's the January transfer window. It's not going to happen.
So you're more looking at the defensive side of things, right? From the positions you mentioned there, because it's, look, we could all say we need another winger and stuff like that, but you're more looking at solidifying the defensive side, right?
Mate, absolutely. Because do you know what? Scoring goals hasn't been our problem. We will score goals. We've got, listen, do I think, is it the Kane and Son partnership of old? Of course not. But we have got players that will chip in. Maddison will chip in with goals. Kulu chips in with goals. Johnson, Son, Solanke. That's the difference now between this forward line isn't as wow factor as what it was before. But what it does, it shares the goals around more than, oh, Harry Kane will get 30 or 40, right? But for me, I think where we're weakest is in midfield and at the back in terms of keeping it tight. Now, is that all on Postecoglou's tactics or is that on personnel? We're going to see. What I do know is, though, there are managers with lesser players in their squads, right, that make their teams harder to beat than Ange does. Now, I give into the fact that's how he plays, but I also give into the fact that top managers that win big trophies and have consistency don't do that. Now, Dave, can I tell you what I think will happen in the January transfer window as opposed to what I want to happen?
Yeah, go on.
Right. I reckon we're gonna bring back either Vuskovic or Phillips if we can with one of them. Right. I think Cardoso might come in, the Real Betis midfielder, who again he's okay. I've seen him play enough. He's okay. Like we talked about before with midfielders, does he come in and go, boom, that's mine? I don't think so. And Yang is obviously joining up from December, so he'll be classed as a new signing in January. I don't think we'll do anything else. If they do, do you know what, Dave? If we get to the January transfer window, right, and Spurs go and sign a player where people like me and you, unanimously, people like me and you who tend to disagree over the years, like we always a good conversation, but if both of us, if every Spurs YouTuber, if every Spurs fan sees one signing in the January window and goes, yes, wow, who pulled that off, right? I'll take a step back and go, fair play. Dave, we know it's not happening because the trend is that we're cutting wages, we're going young. And again, I won't go deep into it, but Ange, whether he believes it or not, has said he didn't want to sign leaders. So that's what I think we'll do. We'll see how wrong or right I am at the end of the January transfer window. But I don't see a Van der Vaart type signing in the offing. I don't see a top player coming in. And when you look at it, Dave, last year's January transfer window looks like a bit of a disaster, doesn't it? If you actually look what we've got from those two players to date, not saying long term, but to date, that January transfer window, Dragoshin and Werner didn't do anything to
improve the situation. No, you're right.
So that's my opinion. What about you?
Do you know what? I think you're absolutely right. I think we have to learn lessons from last January. You know, again, last January, Postecoglou needed help. Brought in two players that didn't really come in and alleviate the situation. And that's my biggest fear this January as well. Like, at the end of the day, the way I see it, right, is if the board brought in Postecoglou, they clearly think that he's the right man to take it forward. They've clearly seen, whether it's the style of play, whatever it is, you know, they've clearly seen something that they say, this is the guy that we feel we can take us forward. Okay, we'll go out and show that this January because, look, I hear you say this all the time about, well, he's the one that says he wanted these players and stuff. And you're right. The articles are out there. He said he wants these players. But I do feel like there's a bit of 5D chess that he's playing when he says these things. In terms of, I think he looks at the likes of Conte and Jose and how they handle the press and constantly bemoaning their luck. They were sacked. I think when he looks at Pochettino, he was a front for Daniel Levy. He justified not making signings over the course of the stadium transition. You know, he was that mouthpiece, and that's what ultimately kept him in the job for as long as it did. You know, obviously winning helps and that, but, you know, the fact that he didn't bemoan his luck, he sort of worked with Daniel Levy. Now, ultimately, it did come back to bite him, because when he really needed Daniel Levy to stick by him, he fucking sacked the guy. But, you know, this is where they need to learn lessons now, and they need to give Postecoglou the back in this January, because if not, we could end up in a very similar situation like we did last season, where we come to January transfer, we bring in one or two players that don't really affect what we're doing, and the season really peters out with a whim. If we're in all cup competitions come January, they really need to go out and they need to forget this. I get it, it's a hard market to deal in, but they really need to go out and add 2-3 players to this. Bam, players of note that when it comes to the back end of the season, we've got really good players there ready to compete come the semi-finals, the finals, if we make it that far. That's where I am at with it. I don't want to see...
I agree. I agree with you. I agree with you about all of it. Like, listen, when I've said to him, he says these things. For me, again, that is one thing. I just wish that he'd stopped saying so much. There's certain things where you think you didn't need to say that. Like, you don't need to come out and volunteer it, you know? So, for example, when he's asked Ange, do you need more senior players or leaders in this team? Just say, you know what, it's definitely something we want to work towards in the future. Vague. Instead, he comes out and says, you can acquire it or you can grow it from within and develop it from within. And that's my route. And you're like, no, don't say that, because now you're letting Daniel Levy and whatever off the hook. So, look, like with anything, Dave, with the transfers, we can do this with every transfer we've ever made under Daniel Levy. We can all go, club signing, definitely the manager signing. And what we tend to do is when it works, like Van der Ven, Ange wanted him. Ange wanted him. When it doesn't work, we go, no, that was Daniel Levy. And I think the truth probably lives somewhere in the middle as normal. But what we are seeing, Dave, is the trend that we're seeing is not that they're going to go out and do something in January. And we always say it's a hard market to operate in, yeah? But it's hard if you haven't got your ducks in a row. This is what the scouting team and the directors of football, this is their job, 24/7, 365 days a year. The transfer window is where all of their hard work and preparation should be planned. Now, I think a lot of people seem to think that you get to the first day and go, right, where should we start looking? Clubs don't wait until the opportunities will come up.
As soon as one window closes, as soon as the 31st of December or whatever it is, September comes, they're on to the next window.
Absolutely. And they'll be speaking, like, from the moment that window shuts, they'll be speaking to, and they'll be monitoring which players we want that are getting minutes, that are not getting minutes. We'll be on the phone to those agents going, I'm just going to pluck a name. I'm not saying we want this guy. Let me pluck a name. Norgard at Brentford. I don't know where that came from. Norgard at Brentford. We might be monitoring him and going, all right, Norgard's agent. Listen, we've seen he's been on the bench quite a bit. Is he open to a move? What do you think Brentford would be receptive to that move? What salary does he want? Would he want to join Spurs? That's their job. Their job is to know come January what's available. Who can we go and get? What's a good loan? That is their job. So I don't ever feel sorry for these teams. They're paid to do that all year round. And we would all love that job, wouldn't we? We'd all love watching footballers all year round.
Imagine.
So, but look, you and I both know, Dave, we'll have 30 days of this during January. And when we get to the end of the window, we all know, even my biggest critics that hate me in your chat right now will be going, yeah, we all know that when we get to the end of that January window, it will be underwhelming, but we'll polish it up. We'll polish a turd. We'll start going, well, maybe we didn't need anything other than Yang and Vuskovic back. That's what we do. And 4 competitions, if we're in all 4 come January, we could quickly be out of them if we do not build a squad and get some senior players in. So big window.
Do you know what? Just on what you were saying there, I think it's a notoriously hard window to operate in if you're not prepared to part with your cash in that window.
Sure.
If you're prepared to part with your cash and fix your problems, you will get your players. But it's always hard for us because Daniel Levy's always looking to save a buck, which makes it even harder. But
yeah,
can I
ask you a quick question on the window?
Yeah?
Do you expect to see Timo Werner still at Spurs at the end of the January transfer window?
Well, I was actually reading reports on that today where apparently it's not as simple for Spurs because it's Leipzig that are the only ones that can cancel the deal. First of all, if that is true, how the fuck did we get ourselves into that situation? We should have at least foreseen it, put some clause in there to say, if it's not working out come January, you're taking them right back. They would have accepted it because they were so eager to get rid of them. So that's just piss poor on that behalf. But yeah, I'd expect them to be here come the end of January, quite frank, to be honest with you. I think if Postecoglou's looking at it, what do? You get rid of Werner, then you have to register Hyuk. Right now, are you going to take the gamble? Because Hyuk's a large unknown, in terms of it's different coming from the J League into the Premier League, a lot different. So if you're Postecoglou and you're any manager, you're probably, despite Timo Werner being crap, you're probably going to go with him rather than take the punt into the unknown to a large degree. But to be honest with you, I think we're ultimately going to be left disappointed this January because I don't think we've got a guy in the DOF that's capable of getting the sort of deals that Tottenham Hotspur need at this stage over the line. I feel like that's why Villa sacked him and brought in Munchie. He brought them so far, but as soon as they really want to kick on, get the big deals done, they're bringing the big dogs with the connections, and he's out the door. So I just feel like he will let us down like he did in the summer, Sava.
I think the difficulty with this, and listen, agreed. I mean, Lang for me, listen, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know Lang inside out, right? But again, it was a very underwhelming appointment. I see Arsenal at the moment. I think they're in talks with, why have I forgotten his name? Portuguese guy who's he's at PSG at the moment. His name's, I knew this would happen. The moment I opened my mouth, I knew I would forget his name. Someone in the chat, right?
We were in conversations with him, or we were looking at him a few years ago. I know exactly what you're on about.
I can't even think. Somebody in the chat right now will be typing it in, Dave, and would have remembered. But they're Luis Campos, maybe. Luis Campos. They're in talks with someone like that. For me, Lang was underwhelming. But what was really telling was, do you remember the football, the Tottenham fan forum? And all four of them were on that. You had, Ange, Levy, Lang, and then the guy hosting. And they were all talking about buying youth. They were all talking about, we want to buy younger players. And Dave, if we get to January and then to a larger extent the next summer, and this is what we do again, we bring in one senior player and loads of kids, we might as well all pack up and go home. In terms of Spurs being a serious club, not from the fact that, oh my God, suddenly we don't love Spurs. Of course we do. But you can't just constantly buy young kids and hope that they're all going to turn into world beaters, because 9 out of 10 of them don't. Who have we bought as a young kid that's turned into a world beater? You can name them on one hand versus the hundreds that you've seen us sign. So for me,
Bale's the obvious one, isn't he? But outside of that, who's reached that sort of level,
Yeah. But this is what we're striving towards. So look, January's not far away. And what's brilliant, Dave? We can all agree on this. We'll be linked with everybody and anybody. We'll make videos about it. We'll all tell the world why they're brilliant. Then we won't sign them. Then we'll sign an 18-year-old, and then we'll convince the world that this is the greatest 18-year-old. Let's say left back. This is the greatest 18-year-old left back who is Ange's. He plays Ange ball. He's brilliant. He's an Ange player. Then 6 months later, those very same fans will be complaining, well, we didn't buy any cover for Udogie. So eat, sleep, repeat, mate, being a Spurs fan.
Do you know what? Just quickly where you were saying, and we'll end it off because we've been actually going nearly 50 minutes now.
Right.
You were saying about the youngsters and stuff like that. Like, we need to learn. Under Pochettino, we sort of done a good mixed to a degree, where we brought in youngsters, but we were bringing in like some Moussa Dembele, very experienced in the Premier League under Fulham, from Fulham. When Yama, very experienced from Southampton, brought him in here. We need to get the mix right, the blend right. I have no problem this club signing youngsters. I think a very good, club operates in both markets. To be quite frank, you always keep an eye on the upcoming talent, but you also look at talent that you can bring in from other clubs to improve your situation that are established. So I would hope this January we are more looking at established players rather than younger players, just to get the blend right. We were going to talk about an article that the Athletic put out about investment from ownerships. We're quite low down in the table. I think we're 16th, and if Southampton owners put a few more in, we'll go down to 17th, etc. But I think we'll save that for the next one, because it's still going to be in topic with the transfer window coming up, because we've been going nearly an hour now. But I want to say thank you for your time, Sava. Go on. Just
really quickly, can I just mention, I think you've hit the nail on the head, Dave. And I think, listen, whatever football fans think of each other and YouTubers' opinions, all we want is Spurs to be successful. The way I see us being successful might be very different to you, to him, to her, to them, whoever. But ultimately, we want them to be successful. Ultimately, when I sit here and say I don't rate Ange and I don't see us winning anything, at the end of the season, I want to come on here, Dave, and go, oh my, wow, they shut me up. I want to sit here and go, can you believe we've just won the League Cup, the FA Cup, and Europa League? That, whether we see that or not, I don't know, but that's what we want. And one last thing, your point there was brilliant. I think when Poch came, a lot of the players Poch actually molded into a team were already here, but he molded them really well, and he added the right blend of youth and experience. If you look at the players he brought in, he brought in Harry Kane into the 11, who was youth, right? But then he went and brought Toby Alderweireld at centre half, who had experience, and also experience of playing with Jan Vertonghen growing up. Dembele into the middle. I'm not saying he bought him, but Dembele was your experience. Eriksen was a little bit more of a younger talent at the time. There was just mixtures throughout the team. And right now, I'm not saying we've got the youngest team in the world, but you can't just buy everyone who's 18. You can't. You can't, because the notion that they're all going to develop at the same stage, at the same time, and all come through and be an all-conquering team in 5 years, it's not Football Manager. It's not FIFA. Some will work out, some won't. The next manager may come in and be like, I don't want to play kids. The next manager might come in and go, well, hang on, I want to. So, look, thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it. Big up to all your chat. I'm sure they've said really nice things about me. I love you too. And look, let's hope that we can inflict a 5th defeat in a row on City this weekend.
Look, I really hope so. But I think if they didn't give Guardiola the new contract, I would probably went down and put a tenner on Spurs to win. But the fact that they're giving a new contract, I think I'll invest it into a doner kebab or something like that. It'll be more fruitful, more enjoyable anyway. Maybe not the best for me either way. But look, I want to say a massive thank you for giving up your time to come and do this with me. I really do appreciate it. Man. I do enjoy the discussions we have, because we don't agree on everything. But I do think sometimes there is a middle ground that we can actually base our debates or our thoughts off of, which I think is very productive and good. I actually really enjoy it. So thank you very much. People in the comments, hopefully you have enjoyed it. Now that you've heard Sava's opinions on a long format on here, hopefully you also get to understand that, he's not as bad as you make him out to be, or he doesn't say as crazy things as sometimes you make him out to be. Sometimes he just says it in a different manner, but sometimes I think we actually say more or less the same thing. So guys, if you did enjoy it, do the good stuff. Smash the like, get over to Sava's channel, Football Heritage TV, get over there, smash the subscribe button. Check out his latest content. I did do a video with him. We talked about some different things over there. We'll try and do that. Try and keep different things for different shows, so they're not tuning in hearing the same things. And go about your day. Enjoy yourself. See you back here tomorrow. As always, in the big Ange, I trust. Come on, you Spurs.